Welcome to the Union Federation podcast here on the Fandom Podcast Network, where we celebrate both Star Trek and the Orville here on the Fandom Podcast Network. This is Union Federation episode 193. This is Star Trek The Next Generation Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2. And in this limited series podcast, we are reviewing every two-part episode of Star Trek The Next Generation. I'd like to introduce the crew here. I am Kevin. I will be your captain for this Union Federation starship. My co-founder of the Fandom Podcast Network is also my co-captains and security and weapons officer, but he also finds strange things in caves. Welcome, Mr. Kyle Wagner. What's going on, buddy?
Well, it would be ungentlemanly to eavesdrop, but it's already too late. So tell me more about your starship.
Starship? What registry is that?
Good to have you. All right. With us as well is our first officer and counselor and the founder of the BQN, Miss Amy Nelson. Welcome.
Well, hello there. So glad to be talking Time's Arrow. Oh,
it's okay. I already said it. It's okay. Back with us here on the Fandom Podcast Network and, of course, the Union Federation is our Oracle and Science Officer. And sometimes she takes over the weapons panel when Kyle's off drinking some, Romulan ale. Please welcome back Haley. What's going on, Haley?
Hello. I don't know. I don't know anymore. I'm lost. I'm so confused.
I've talked to the docs. The adrenaline shot is coming stat.
Okay. That's good to know.
And I am also very, very excited to welcome back a friend of the network and our special guest ambassador. Please welcome Sarah Woloski from the Skywalking through Neverland Podcast Network. Sarah, welcome.
Hey, I'm so excited to be here. I had my pumpkin spice latte and I am ready to go.
Yes. It seems like only a little while ago I was hanging out with you and your husband Richard down there at the Star Wars bar down there in Hollywood Boulevard, otherwise known as Scum and Villainy. And I remember I was pushing hard to get you on the episode. I think I might have annoyed you a little bit.
Oh, no, not at all. No, I love talking Star Trek. It's funny because Skywalking through Neverland, we cover like Star Wars, Disney, Marvel, pop culture, and we don't often cover Star Trek because I'm the Star Trek fan, and I've kind of got Richard into the fandom, but he's not like, a big Star Trek fan, so we hardly get to talk about that.
We're working on that.
Yes.
Kyle.
Yes.
I just had a knock at the door, Kevin. There's someone asking for rights, saying we haven't paid our rent for our troop yet. I'm just anything about that.
Just ignore it. Let him go. So of course, we are discussing Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2 here on the Fandom Podcast Network. We're celebrating Star Trek The Next Generation. And of course, you can find this podcast on Union Federation Podcast and, of course, the BQN. Amy, you got anything fun coming up soon?
Well, we are getting ready for our YouTube special, The View Screen, that's going to be airing on Sundays at 9 a.m. Pacific for our season 2.
Sweet. That is really cool. All right, make sure you guys check out the BQN. And as I mentioned, we're talking Time's Arrow. We're talking all Star Trek Next Generation. What we're doing is we're celebrating all of the two-part episodes. And the ones that we've done recently is, of course, Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2, and Redemption Part 1 and 2. And recently, we just dropped Unification Part 1 and 2. And what we're doing, actually, and this was Amy, this was your idea, and I liked it too, is we're doing this in chronological order of course, the timeline, but also when they originally aired. And that's part of the fun talking about these here. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, coming up, we got Chain of Command Part 1 and 2 and Birthright Part 1 and 2, ending off with Descent Part 1 and 2 and Gambit. And then we'll have a final episode kind of summing them all up and also talking about some of the other non-TNG favorite two-part episodes that have happened throughout the series. But I did want to mention to you guys, this is our mission statement here. As I said, this is a 9-episode limited podcast series here. And what's kind of weird is that as of we're recording this in 2024, it's been 30 years since new Star Trek The Next Generation TV episodes left us for the last time. So we feel that we need to revisit these two-part episodes, which is a fun way to celebrate the TNG fandom. And Sarah, I wanted to ask you, since you're our guest here, do you remember watching these when these first came out and remembering this? Do you have memory? Did you kind of catch them later on in reruns?
So I believe like my mom and I got into Star Trek, and I think I was already in high school at that point, or going from middle school to high school, which was like mid 90s. So for me, I think I caught them in syndication. So like every night at 9 p.m. we would sit down and we would watch Star Trek. So and when it was in syndication, it was not in any kind of order. So I just watched random episodes, and we loved it because my mom and I equated my dad with Data. And so that's basically why. And then I had a big crush on Picard because I've always been attracted to older men.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. I love everyone's story of how they catch up on Star Trek Next Generation, whether it was when it first came out, but catching them in syndication. Yeah, you're right. They were never on order or in order. And sometimes there are certain episodes they would never show, which was, I always thought that was kind of weird. So yeah. Well, what I wanted to do was here, guys, is get your thoughts on the recent episodes that we did. And we have been obviously sharing the IMDb ratings on these, because we are rating these in our own way here. So, Haley, I want to start with you. Best of Both Worlds Part 1 and 2. IMDb rating gave Episode 1 a 9.3, Episode 2 a 9.2 out of 10. So you can imagine how high that rating is. How would you rate those episodes together as one, and your brief thoughts on it?
So for me, I'm giving that a 10 phasers out of 10 phasers.
Nice.
So, I mean, I remember, it's funny you ask about like watching, and I know there's episodes, obviously I didn't watch from the beginning, so I watched like later on as I was older, but I do remember watching this, and actively just being so enthralled. And then, we all remember the worst summer ever of having to wait 3 months to find out did Oscar actually kill Picard, and why would you kill the captain? So 10 out of 10. I mean, if you think about it, this kicked off this whole 2-part cliffhanger television in general. I think it was such a big draw that, I mean, how many shows have left us with cliffhangers at the end of seasons, or in that season break, when there used to be a mid-season break. And so I think for me, it was just absolutely phenomenal. It was so well done, despite my disdain for Shelby. I really do enjoy.
Oh, come on, you love her now.
No, I still don't like her. She still pisses me off. And so
that's awesome.
Yeah, I just think they were fantastically done.
Sarah, what about you? Your thoughts? What your thoughts on the Best of Both Worlds? Of course, that was one of the first season ender cliffhangers. We had to wait all summer to see it, and the Borg were, locutusing there and stuff like that. So what is your thoughts on Best of Both Worlds, and what grade do you give it?
So I definitely would give it, like, anytime you have Borg, you have TNG together, like that and Q, like those episodes are really up there for me. So it's definitely, I would say 10 out of 10 for that.
Nice.
And watching it now with kind of that lens, like I'm also on the podcast Fangirls Going Rogue, where we really look at the inclusion of women in Star Wars. And so to look at this episode of Star Trek back in what would this be, 89 still, or 90?
That was what was that? That was 90. It was 90.
90.
Close,
it was 90. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
in 1990 to have, Shelby is a woman, and you can see like Commander Riker really has to kind of deal with that, like his attitude toward her, and I love when Troy puts him in his place at one point.
Yeah.
She's like, yeah. It's like yeah, so I really
that's nice.
Those.
Guys both gave it a perfect score. Love that. Okay, so let's go. Let's stay with you, Sarah, on Redemption. This was the Worf 2-parter here, and he had to gain his honor. And we had Klingons basically trying to take his family down, and we had, of course, Picard being his Chadich, if I remember that correctly, being by his side. So yeah, we had a good Klingon 2-parter there. What was your thoughts on that episode, and what score do you give it?
So this one, it's been a really long time since I've watched. I know you gave me a little bit of a heads up on it, but I just didn't have time to watch the whole two-parter. So at this point, it's been like 30 years, so I don't remember, honestly.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. What about you, Haley? Do you remember the two-parter Redemption?
I do. I'm gonna give it a 8 photon torpedoes out of 10
Nice.
photon torpedoes. I like the story. I think, this, because obviously, if you come in later to Star Trek, Worf talks about, how he's been dishonored and he doesn't have a house, but he gets the House of Martok. And so you kind of know this backstory, so to speak, if you watch DS9 before you watch TNG. And so but I do love the story because I think it's got some really good Klingon culture references. I love Picard coming in and stepping in and being that Chadich and taking, this ownership for him, and it plays in later, with different things. And I just think it's wonderful. I really like the story of it.
Awesome. Okay, the last week's episode, let's stay with you, Haley. We did Unification. That was a big one. That's the one where Spock comes in. He's trying to figure out how he can get the Romulans and Vulcans to unification, status. Quite difficult, of course. We get Sela to return, but also this is a big deal too because we get one of the OG characters, one of the most popular ones, and we also made point to let people know that this was about a month before Star Trek VI. The Undiscovered Country came out, and he made reference to what he did in that movie before the movie came out, which was interesting. And on rewatch, you're like, oh, wait a minute, there we go. What were your thoughts on Spock's return in Unification 1 and 2?
Okay, no one hate me. This I know this one's, so many people love it. I'm not saying I don't love it. This has some aspects that I don't love because of a previous episode that airs that brings in things that I don't love. And so I have to go like a 7.8.
7.8. Okay. All right.
Yeah. I love seeing Spock, Data trying to pretend to be a Vulcan, which you would think that he would be better at. And it's got some great moments, like I love when Captain Picard's trying to go to sleep and Data's just standing there.
I think that was the best part of all the 2 episodes because Amy and I made a point about that.
Yeah. And so like in Picard, I love that part. Obviously the intrigue of, trying to, bring Romulans and Vulcans back together because, we find out, yay, they are the same species that just branched off, blah, blah, blah. But the whole Sela thing just really gets me. I don't like it.
Right. Sarah, what about you? What are your memories of Unification, the Spock episode? Do you have a rating for that as well? Oh, hold on. You're on mute there. There you go.
Yeah, I think I'll give that an 8.2. It's a little bit higher.
Okay.
Yeah, I love anything with Picard, but yeah, bringing Spock in the fold is fun, just to see that character. And so I feel like that one deserves a good rating.
Awesome. All right. Well, guys, let's get into your first away mission here, and let's get into the rest of the show here. All right, this is the Admiral's Log episode synopsis, and what we're going to do is we're going to have Amy read our synopsis for these here, but we're going to read this first one. We're going to have our discussion about the first episode, kind of like watching it, back to back on the screen. Maybe look into the second episode as well. So, Haley, Amy, let us know what's going on with Times Arrow Part 1 and 2. Did we have a cliffhanger, or do we have a mid-season 2-parter here?
Well, this was a cliffhanger, and it was done intentionally, I would like you to know, because by then Deep Space Nine was all the rage, and everyone thought, oh, Next Generation, they're going to be done because
That's in the trivia, by the way.
Oh!
spoilers.
That's all right.
Oh, I thought it was fitting here. So they intentionally made this another two-parter.
Yeah.
And so it Times Arrow Part 1 was the end of the summer, so June 13th was when it aired, and then we didn't get the Part 2 until September 19th. So all right. So the short synopsis is Captain Picard and his archaeological curiosity are called upon by scientists from Earth when they find evidence to support beliefs that aliens had visited Earth in the late 1800s. So the Enterprise is recalled to Earth after evidence is found on the planet of aliens for 500 years before. A cavern near Starfleet headquarters in San Francisco contains 19th century relics and Commander Data's disembodied head. Investigation reveals cellular fossils native to the planet of Davidia 2, indicating a race of shapeshifters visited Earth's past. The Enterprise travels to Davidia 2, bringing Data's second head. A temporal disturbance is discovered on the planet. Though no life forms are visible, Troy senses the presence of suffering humans. The crew determines that the aliens are slightly out of phase with time. Data notes that his android body has a phase discriminator that would allow him to see the aliens. Captain Picard reluctantly allows him to join the away team. Inside a cavern, Data, in phase with the aliens, describes them. They are absorbing light strands from a device in the center of the cavern, otherwise appearing benign. When the two aliens enter the time portal, Data is drawn in. He finds himself in 1893 San Francisco, California. Needing money, Data wins a sizable amount in a poker game. He stays at a local hotel, befriending the bellhop, future author Jack London, and claiming to be a French inventor. Data enlists London to acquire 19th century supplies under the pretense of building an internal combustion engine. Data is actually creating a detector to locate the aliens. Data sees a photo of Enterprise bartender Guinan in a newspaper and goes to a reception being held for her. Believing she also traveled from the future, Data approaches Guinan, who is conversing with Samuel Clemens, who is Mark Twain. Data is surprised when she fails to recognize him, which sparks Clement's curiosity. While speaking privately, Data realizes Guinan is actually native to this time period and has yet to meet the 24th century Enterprise crew. Data privately explains his situation, unaware Clemens is eavesdropping. Clemens becomes determined to discover the truth about the two. Meanwhile, in the 24th century, the Enterprise crew builds a phase discriminator that allows them to see the aliens and go back to rescue Data. Guinan convinces Picard that he must join the pending away mission, warning they otherwise may never meet. The away team activates the phase discriminator and sees the aliens. The light strands are human life forces at the moment of death that the aliens consume. Picard, Riker, LaForge, Troy, and Beverly Crusher enter the time portal and try to stop the aliens.
All right. Well done. Thank you very much on that, Amy. Okay, let's go ahead and Kyle, I want to start with you. I want to get your thoughts on your original and new reactions to part 1.
I remember when I first watched this, just being so intrigued because it's like, no, they're not killing Data. What the heck? You know, and you've got that hanging over you. And then watching it the second time around, what I found impactful was the emotional situation of this episode, which I really didn't register with me the first time around. How everybody on the crew was so differently affected. Seeing scenes with like Riker and Troy, and then them talking, and the awkwardness of everybody talking with Data, and the emotional weight that this episode had, but also being kind of one of the weirder episodes of Trek too, especially when you got the whole creatures in the cave and everything like that. But it's also just so much fun with Brent Spiner in this situation, playing this role, and for both of these parts, but especially in this first part, it's just so much fun, and that it's one of the more fun two-parters of TNG.
Good call. Let's go to our special guest ambassador here, Sarah Woloski. Sarah, give us your original and your new thoughts of watching it recently for Time Zero Part 1.
So I don't remember my original thoughts, so I just love it when anytime you see them cosplaying, basically. Like our crew is in different outfits, whether it's going to be on the bridge, not the bridge, on the holodeck or anything like that, like Moriarty, those episodes. So I just love that. And we'll get to the Time Zero Part 2 later, but yeah, so in this first part, you see Data, and he has to kind of interact with this 19th century, 18th century San Francisco. And it reminded me a lot, this episode, of City on the Edge of Forever. Because Data time travels just like they did, and then he's like in his room and he's building a machine, an experiment that the same thing that Spock did. So it just reminded me a lot of that. Just
I totally forgot about that. Good call. I like that. Yeah.
I watched it recently. And so the only thing it doesn't have is the love story, but you kind of get that between Picard and Guinan, but it's a different kind of a love story.
Right. That's an excellent point.
Yeah.
Haley, let's go to you. Your thoughts on Part 1 here of Time Zero.
Yeah, I mean, I remember watching this, I think originally and in subsequent reruns. It's enjoyable for like the aspect of like the time period, just because I like period pieces and that kind of stuff. But beyond that, it's not very high for me. So I like this aspect of our crew, like, going in time, just because we see so much of that in Star Trek. So that's always fun to see how they would handle situations with the advanced knowledge that they have, but back in time and trying to not give things away. But beyond that, it's
Gotcha. Okay. What's interesting is I have a vague memory of when I first saw this when it came out in, 92. I was playing in a band, and we were kind of nervous. We were opening up for this other more predominant band in our hometown there, and we had set up our stuff. And then I think I was either talking to my bass player Rick, or I think it might have been my drummer Dave, and we were all watching Star Trek. And I just remember, like, out of the blue, I was just like, "So Data's head. What do you think?" It kind of broke the tension. I just remember it's just kind of funny, we kind of laughed about it, and we had to wait all summer for that because I think that gig was in the summer, which is kind of funny. Just one of the early memories that I have. This episode made a huge impression on me, and I remember having to wait for a while on this, and I do remember the excitement of Deep Space Nine that was coming out and stuff, but I was in on TNG, and these two-parters were becoming a big deal, and I love time travel. We are celebrating time travel actually here on the Fandom Podcast Network for our Culture Clash Live. We've been celebrating some fun time travel movies, and I love all the tropes that they use. Some movies and TV shows use the tropes well, some don't. It's fun to discuss those. But yeah, as you said, Sarah, I love it when you see our crew dressing up, whether it's holodeck adventures, getting them out of their stuffy uniforms and stuff like that. And, and I love this time frame or time area of the United States, during the gold rush. And, you meet the old 49er who obviously did not find the gold he was looking for, where over 300,000 people came out to California to try to do. So yeah, one of my favorites. But I always thought it was kind of interesting. And I was noticing on a rewatch, guys, I was wondering if you kind of felt the same way as we're watching this episode. It's like, the Enterprise gets called back to Sector 001. Just say Earth, come on, and it's like they go down there, and the archaeologist guys are like, yeah, hey, we found this watch, we found this gun. Hey, we found your head, Data. You think you might lead off with that? Hey Picard, you might want to get to Earth. We found Data's head. I just thought that was kind of funny. Was there any other moments in this first episode, guys, that you kind of wanted to touch on? The reason why I was mentioning this is because there's a couple things I did want to say, and I think you were mentioning, was it who was mentioning this different type of love that Guinan and Picard have, and that in this episode it's friendship, this love of friendship and I like the moment where Geordi is telling Guinan they found Data's head, and then he leaves, and she kind of goes full circle, so she knows what's happening here, and that she is also telling Picard that he must go on this mission. Amy, your thoughts on that?
When you stop to think about it, it's Guinan who joined us in season 2. So she has been waiting, right? 3 years, waiting for everyone to catch up to what she has known this whole time. And so to think about that, I just love that. Like, her patience, and that's why she must seem so wise. Like, she sort of knows some things. I love the interaction between Picard and Guinan. It's always been fascinating, and it really does come out obviously in this episode. One thing that I wanted to say that I love about this episode, or 2-part, is that the crew, the comedic moments are right there. And I love Data's fish out of water. He's in San Francisco. So all of that is like comedy. He's using his skills from poker that he learned on the ship. Like, there's so much tying itself to itself. It's so wonderful to have those references. And then you also get this sort of beautiful ending to Data's story. Like, he's mortal. Like, at this one point of time between when he found the head and to when it gets blown off, he's gonna die, and when he's explaining it to Geordi and everyone's sort of walking on eggshells, and he's like, it's comforting to me. And I think that is so well delivered, and sort of shows the awkwardness that we as a society have in discussing death. I mean, it's just awkward everywhere, and it shouldn't be. We all experience it. So there's some really good things about this episode.
I actually would like to stay on that thread and get your guys' thoughts on that, because I did want to share a moment between Deanna and Riker.
Mm-hmm.
And then it ends up in this awkward turbo lift scene with Data, and Data realizes what's going on. But Deanna and Riker are having this mortality discussion, because he's upset that he knows that in the future, or in the past, however you look at it, Data's going to die. Deanna asks, "Have you ever heard of Data defining friendship?" And Riker says no. And Deanna says, in a very funny Data way, "As I experience certain sensory input patterns, my mental pathways become accustomed to them. The inputs eventually are anticipated and even missed when absent." Riker says, "So what's the point?" Deanna, "He's used to us and we're used to him." And then, of course, the turbo lift opens up and they stop talking. But I want to get your guys' thoughts on that scene, because Data is the one that's taking it the best, I guess. Haley, what do you think?
Well, yeah. I look at this and I equate it to, there's 2 ways you can look at this. You can look at it from a disability lens, where, I have people that have family members, Down syndrome, they're nonverbal, or on, extreme autism and low functioning. They can't vocalize what they feel for people. And people might say, oh, well, they don't, recognize, they don't identify the kinds of relationships that, normal functioning people have. But they do. Just because they can't express it, just because it might be a little different for them, doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It's the same with pets. You know, you can't sit there and say that pets don't pick a certain person that they like more than others. I mean, in this household, Chloe's the spare human. So, you know, and just because they don't vocalize it, they can't, you know, verbalize that doesn't mean that they don't miss you when they're gone. So like when we were gone on our trip to California, oh my Lanta, did Starry have issues the first couple of nights, you know,
Your kitty
being
was
away.
like, no.
Yeah. And then when we got back, even like when I went to Boise last year, I was gone 4 days. For a week, every time I sat down, she was on me and like not gonna move, like you're not getting up kind of stuff. and that's not typical for her, you know. And so animals can experience those type of relationships, and granted they might be different than, again, we experience them, but that doesn't mean that they don't exist. So it's the same thing with Data. Just because he doesn't have emotions, he's not human, he doesn't have the sensory, necessarily all the senses that we have, doesn't mean that he doesn't develop friendships, doesn't mean that he doesn't miss people in the way that he would.
Yeah.
You know, it's not the same. And so just because we can't understand it doesn't mean it's not real, doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Good point. Sarah, what about you? It seems like Riker's taking it worse, but you know, there's Data. He's taking it in stride, and it's just some wonderful moments there. What is your thought on that?
Yeah, I think just Data's whole response, nothing phases him, and yet, like on the outside, you're right. It's like nothing phases him on the outside, and so I love that moment when he and Geordi have that discussion, you know, and Geordi's like, do you need to talk about it? And Data's like, no, I'm good. Do you need to talk about it? And Geordi's like, yeah, I do. Like that was like the best. And the way they did that was so cute. So yeah, it's like, you know, a lot of people don't need to express themselves outwardly. They really experience their emotions more inward and inside, like introverts and extroverts, you know, things like that. And so I feel like that Data is more like what an introvert would be like. Like, you know, I always equate him to my dad. So my dad was kind of similar. You never really knew what he was thinking. He didn't get super angry. He never got super excited. He was always kind of one, you know, like one level. And yet there was the emotions in there.
Kyle, I want to get your thoughts on that topic as well. I just want to mention something. When you come back from the commercial and after the music intro, there's a really great scene where the camera goes in on Data's head, and then you see Data's him and his real head is behind it, and he slowly pops up over it. Just a great that was a great shot. Kyle, your thoughts on this whole thing where everyone's just like, Data, you're dead. Let's talk about this.
I think they actually played off this aspect of it very well in this first episode, because you see Riker being angry right out of the gate, and he's so lost in his own human emotion, he doesn't register the fact right out of the gate that Data doesn't have that same emotional reaction. But what's interesting to see with Data is, like, you do get a sense of relief from him that he knows his life isn't infinite now. He knows he's going to come full circle, and in his acceptance of it is he's happy about it, because he feels like that makes him more human in his quest to always become human. And I think that it's really interesting to watch that play out. And you see all the Picard even being overprotective for Picard, and Picard taking extra measures to make sure Data doesn't go away on the away team or things like that. And I think it's interesting because everybody reacts just a little differently. And then you have Guinan, who just knows the whole story already. And it's like, I mean, I'm thinking I'm going back to her. You could have said something. Come on, Guinan.
I know, right? Yeah.
Afterwards. But it's so great how this particular episode just handles so many different emotional reactions, but they fit the character so well per each emotional reaction. You got Troy trying to comfort people and get people to talk. You've got Geordi who wants to go talk to his best friend. You've got Riker angry. You've got Picard being the kind of the fatherly figure almost to Data and trying to protect him in that kind of aspect, but then realizing he has to send Data on this mission. So it was some of the better writing for a Star Trek episode as far as dealing with the emotions of the character.
I liked how you brought up about how like he hesitated, Picard hesitated sending Data down there, and Data's like, wait a minute, let me talk to you, boss. That was interesting scene there. Yeah. One thing I just want to mention briefly before we head into the synopsis for part 2, I really like the aliens, these Davidian 2 aliens. They were very creepy, and the whole cane serpent thing. I thought this was done really well, and I like the idea that they were in like a different time shift, made it even creepier. Just these are the type of effects too that to me I don't think they've aged badly. I still found them like, ugh. Anyone else still get the creepy vibes watching those?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, Amy, let's go ahead and get into Time's Arrow Part 2. Yeah, the episode aired September 19th, 1992. We had to wait a whole summer.
Well, arriving in 1893, San Francisco, the away team searches for Data and investigates a cholera outbreak. Dr. Crusher believes that alien shapeshifters use the epidemic to mask their hunting humans to ingest their life force. The team encounters 2 shapeshifters at a hospital. When confronted, the aliens escape, which alerts Data to their location and reunites them with the away team just in time. They pursue the aliens to the cavern near San Francisco, followed by Guinan and Clemens. The aliens' cane-like device opens a time portal back to the future Davidia 2. While struggling over the device, Data's head is detached from his body. The away team follows one alien into the future, bringing Data's headless body and the cane. Clemens spontaneously follows the others to the 24th century, while Picard is left behind tending to an injured Guinan. The dying shapeshifter tells Picard that 19th century Earth would be in jeopardy if the aliens' 24th century world is attacked, due to amplifying the time shift effect. To send a warning into the future, Picard places iron fillings with a binary message to the static memory of Data's head. In the 24th century, Geordi LaForge reattaches Data's 500-year-old head onto his body. Once conscious, Data discovers Picard's message, and he and Geordi engineer a solution. Using photon torpedoes in phase with the alien habitat will negate the dangerous time shift amplification. The portal opening cane device will only allow one person to travel to the 19th century and exchange places with Picard. Clemens returns to his native time. Picard leaves Guinan in Clemens' care and requests he settle the away team's 19th century debts. Picard laments not having the opportunity to know Clemens better. The author says that who he is written in his books. Picard returns to the future and is transported safely aboard the Enterprise before it fires the time-phased torpedoes, destroying the alien habitat. Picard reunites with Guinan.
You're on mute, Kevin.
Yeah, I was on mute. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sarah,
busted.
let's go. Let's start with you, Sarah. This
Actually,
part
I have an
two.
important question. For
Oh yeah, of course.
I want to know if putting Data's 500-year older head to his body, is there some kind of warranty void there? Because now we have 2 parts that are way older than the other.
And is it still weird that same head is the one he's always had since then?
Yeah.
That is very weird to think about. Oh my gosh.
It's
Wow.
like, do you have to go in there? Does he have to like clean his head more often than it's been buried for so long? I mean, and also too, like, could they go back to Earth and dig up his old head and just kind of have 2 one as a spare?
Well, what I want to know is where can we visit this at the Presidio in San Francisco?
Exactly.
Because we can go to Lucasfilm, we can visit Lucasfilm, but can we visit this Star Trek location? That would be amazing.
That'd be great. Let's go visit Yoda and let's go see Data's head at the same time.
Yes.
Sarah, let's get your thoughts on part 2 here.
Well, this is kind of the ending and the beginning of Guinan and Picard's relationship, which I think is very sweet. And there's some really beautiful, like soft melodies associated with any time that they're like talking on screen. Yeah, there they are. And it's very sweet. So I just love this, and I love the fact that, you know, I think Guinan, we perceive her as very wise because they use her very sparingly throughout the series. And it's a very good call. She's not always in every episode, and when she is, you know it's gonna be special, kind of like the Q episodes as well. And then I just have to call out, I love that, you know, all of our crew, Picard and Beverly Crusher and everyone, they're all like in this location with this landlady, and so they pretend to be basically a Shakespeare theater act, which of course Patrick Stewart was part of the Royal Shakespeare Company for, you know, I don't know, 25 years, something like that before that. And when he kisses the landlady on her cheeks after he pronounces her the best actress they've ever had, her reaction and her little giggly girly giggle would be like my reaction.
Oh, you
Ever
mean this
Patrick
one right
Stewart
here,
did
the
that.
picture we're showing on YouTube?
Yes, exactly. Oh my God. So I just had to call out that. It's so fun. So yeah. And again, time travel and this seeing our crew in their different outfits. And I do have to say that only Patrick Stewart looks completely comfortable in his outfit. Like he just looks like he was made for, you know, different outfits. It's great.
Haley, what about you? What are your thoughts on this part 2?
Yeah. Well, first off, I have to piggyback. That kind of was my reaction, and I only got to talk to Patrick Stewart, so like, it was very much like a.
So we've all had a Mrs. Carmichael moment.
Yeah. And I, you know, I was just like, and I came out of the room, and I can't remember who was waiting, and they're like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I couldn't do anything but smile because like the words just wouldn't come out. So yeah, so I can attest that would be probably anybody's reaction to even just getting to talk to Sir Patrick Stewart. So no, I enjoy the second part, I think, a little bit more than I do the first part of the episode. And yeah, seeing everybody in costume, I think it's funny that Patrick Stewart's is very like low key. Everyone else's is very like stuffy and uppity. Of course, seeing Geordi and dressed up is my favorite, but that's just because Geordi's my favorite. So, and the bowler hats. I'm just a sucker for hats. Those and fedoras, man. So, yeah, I really enjoy this, and I've always loved Guinan. And see, Patrick Stewart, he shouldn't have been in that. He looks better in a fedora. So every time he does his little, you know, Cagney Lacey mystery PI stuff on the holodeck, he just the bowler hat's just kind of silly on him. So, but fedoras weren't that time period. So anyway, but I love seeing all the costumes. I think it's just really fun. Getting to see everybody and Riker playing the cop. I mean, that's just hilarious. So
I work downtown. I work downtown too.
yes.
Whoops.
That's always the response, which is never a good response. But so yeah, and then I love the relationship that Guinan and Picard have. I think that like I loved it anyway, no matter what. Whether we had the backstory of as to why didn't matter. I didn't care. Just because every time she is on screen, you know it's going to be either something really, really interesting that you're going to learn about the other characters in the show that you've loved, or it's going to be really great and you're going to find out that Q hates her, and you know, and or she has like a phase pistol, a big rifle under the bar, and you're like, where did that come from? Why has no one else used this in like fights and stuff? So yeah, and I have to say the snake cane, and this is part of my upbringing, made me really think of like Jim Henson and Labyrinth like that kind of, I don't know if anybody else kind of had that vibe of like, I could see Jim Henson like making something like that in a movie and like putting something weird that would kind of like come alive and be kind of creepy. That's immediately where my brain goes every time I
Gotcha.
see that thing.
Amy.
Yeah. Again, the comedy and the connection and chemistry that they all have with each other. Mr. Pickard didn't pay his rent, so getting Carmichael in, and I know, I'm sure Kevin, you will want to talk about this, but when they are practicing, and again, good call out, Sarah, with Patrick Stewart in the Shakespearean company, and so now they're here doing Shakespeare.
Mention the moment. It's funny. Go ahead.
Yeah, they're rushing together because she's wanting rent. And so they have to hurry and like pretend that they're acting out in this play. And so she comes in and they're like all straightening and, straighten their glasses and holding up the books. And of course, Jordy is holding the book upside down. So Troy just very carefully goes over and just turns the book right side up. Oh my gosh. And it's just the fun that they have together. It was interesting getting this phase shift, and it's like we get to learn some pretty cool stuff like weapons officers. Hello, we can take a torpedo and phase shift it and then blow. That was some pretty cool science to sort of amp up this, because Haley, I am with you. These episodes, they're not my favorite. They're not challenging, I guess, that science talk or something. It's just a fun episode. Absolutely love it. But I think that might be a little bit of the reason that there's not this super uber, techno babble too much in this, except for the Davidia. And so when we get this here in part 2, I'm a little bit more engaged.
Kyle, your thoughts are.
I think one of the things Amy talked about, how this episode, this 2-part episode was fun. And that's to me, that's what stands out about this. When we look back at the other 3 we've done so far, they've all had some heaviness to them. Mm-hmm. And this one is like, okay, we're just going to let one go that the cast can have some fun with, can enjoy things. What I wouldn't have given at times to be on a fly on the wall in those private moments between Patrick Stewart and Whoopi Goldberg and some of the conversations they probably had. They're probably some of the most fascinating conversations ever to take place. And again, that's some of the magic of this episode is the interpersonal relationships. And especially in this case with Picard and Guinan, because it's funny to see especially watching this now after getting through season 3 of Picard and just knowing the depths that relationship truly goes. And when you have the full history, and now you go back and rewatch this where they meet each other.
We had the young Guinan in that series.
Yeah. So it makes it that much more fascinating, and still to have everybody gets a little bit of a moment to shine in this 2-parter, which I really like. And of course, we would be remiss if we did not discuss Mark Twain in this episode, because it's just to throw that into the mix and how well they did it when it could have come across so corny, and it didn't. And that's praise to the actor who plays Mark Twain. That's a praise to the writer. It could have been much, much cornier. I mean, it's going to be a little bit corny because anytime you portray Mark Twain, it seems like it. But
does anybody else think of Jerry Hardin as Mark Twain every time Mark Twain is mentioned from now on? I do.
Yeah. He did a phenomenal job. And I'm a big Mark Twain fan. My dad actually has, I think it's his 3rd generation complete set of his books in hardcover in hardcover. So it's neat to see that. It's neat to see the fun they had. And I think that's when I come out of this, it's the fun of this 2-parter of this episode that makes it stand out. Yes, it's not the heavy, it's not the super sciencey. It's a little bit out there as far as some of the concepts, but you could just tell they were having so much fun.
Good call. One of the things I want to mention too was I love the fact that the two aliens played a couple, which made them kind of harder to spot, and they were obviously dressed in period pieces. And the actors that they got to play them, I thought were great, and they're creepy, just kind of like walking around. I'll get into more of that a little bit later. But the reason why we're doing this, guys, I want to give a shout out to Dalton Norman over there at Screen Rant. He did a great article where he ranked every two-part episode back in 2022. And what he had to say about Time's Arrow, he said time travel had been part of Star Trek since the beginning. A few episodes have had much fun with the concept as the two-parter Time's Arrow. While investigating an archaeological site on Earth, the Enterprise crew discovers that there is evidence that an alien race have been on Earth since the 1800s. When Data is sent back in time to the turn of the century, the crew must attempt to rescue him as well as get to the bottom of the alien menace. The most memorable part of the episodes is the appearance from famous author Mark Twain. But there is a lot more to the episode than simple fan service. The story does a great job of playing with the difficult concept of time travel, and it explores timelines through the mysterious bartender Guinan. Eventually destined to meet Whoopi, Goldberg excels at playing a younger and slightly less wise version of her character, centuries before she encounters Jean-Luc Picard. Now, guys, I want to kind of touch on the time travel that we get in this particular episode, because this is going to lead to our next segment here. Whenever I look back on time travel, this is one of the episodes, even in movies, that this one pops up to the top of my head because of how well it was done, how it was executed, very clever with the time phasing and the threat of the aliens and what was happening. They were using this cholera epidemic to mask the murder that they were doing, so to speak. I want to kind of get your thoughts on that, how they handled the time travel in this, Amy.
Yeah, it still is a doozy, but I feel like when I'm done watching, everything has, as Guinan says, full circle. So everything, and one person can go back. Oh, look, we have a Clements. We need a Picard. Let's do this lovely switch. I mean, things work out nicely enough where I can okay, they had to go back and then this happened, but then they took the body and then the head from here. And it sort of just makes sense. And I'm not going to think too much harder about it because I'm sure there will be flaws, but
okay,
everything sort of ties itself in a bow. And for me, remember since we are a union federation, the sandwich from the Orville.
Mm-hmm. Yes, Orville, yes.
Yes. So the sandwich shows back up. We have our Data. He's whole. So to me, it's just this.
Are you calling Data's head the sandwich?
Yes, I am.
I love it. Good call out. Sarah, let's go with you. Your thoughts on the time travel aspect of Time's Arrow 1 and 2.
I mean, I think it works. I think it was a very scientific way of explaining time travel, and I thought it was very let's see. So Data was able to time travel, or he was able to time shift the 0.4 whatever phases to get to the right place to then time travel, and then the crew just decides, okay, well, we need to do that too. So they scientifically come up with a way of time shifting and doing it. No big deal. It's no end game thing. We just figured out how to time travel. It's all good.
Yeah.
And yeah, it worked out. The only thing I was confused about when I first watched it was they were on Earth, and then they had to go far away from Earth to Dravidia 3, whatever it was. And then they time traveled to Earth again. And I realized that's where the time loop was, I guess, but I thought that was confusing, that they didn't just time travel from that Earth location to Earth in the 19th century.
That's a good point. Yeah. Haley, what are your thoughts on the time travel tropes?
Yeah. So it's interesting. I like this idea, I think, of, having a different phase shifting, right? I think for a lot of people, when you think of time travel, that kind of idea, that concept makes the most sense. In TOS, it's, okay, we're going to go and we're going to fly and we have to hit a certain speed to zip around the star. And then, and like, then that somehow makes sense. And to me, I think that also kind of makes sense. Like hitting a certain speed where you're past, the speed of time, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, so I can whatever it. But so I think for most people, this idea of creating some kind of portal or a device that allows you to time shift is I just finished watching Enterprise, so I am officially a completionist at this point. I have seen it all. So having a device that allows you to somehow manipulate space-time makes sense, I think, in the best regards of like how to travel through time and travel from one timeline to another. So I think in that regard, this phase shifting makes sense to me.
Gotcha. So Kyle, I don't know if you know, but Haley's our science officer. She gets very sciencey. Good luck following that.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate that.
I should always just go last. Seriously. Either that or have me go first, and then everyone's like, oh yeah.
Now it makes sense.
Kyle, we've been talking about time travel and Culture Clash this whole year. We've been having fun doing this. Time travel troping on this.
Well, I'm just thinking now I would like to see an episode where Picard and Data go after Jack the Ripper, but that's a whole other.
Time after time. We just covered on Culture Clash. Well done.
That would not be Picard and Data. It would be Geordi and Data.
Come
on now.
Yeah.
They like playing Sherlock and come on.
There you go. Yeah.
So no, it would not be Picard.
The thing about this episode with the time tropes it uses is one, of course, having the character who is so out of time with Data in that situation and how he adapts to it. I mean, I love the aspect of when he goes into the poker, finds out there's a poker game, and that's how he gets all of his money. But what I loved about it too was how when Data is working and building his device to try to get some things done, it all stays within the technology of that realm, and where you see him literally to get where he needs to go. He's taking apart his phaser. He's taking apart his communicator. He's using as what's hand. It wasn't just a trope of, oh, something just appeared or somebody brought that piece that I need. It was really working with what he had to work with, which I thought was very cool. And just to take that 4-second time variance, that for what that was. And I think, again, it was smart writing in the fact, well, Data can do it because he's got this neural system that will allow him to do it. It takes Geordi time to get everything built that he needs to do that. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what makes it kind of unique in a time trope sense is you have one person who can already do it, but for everybody else, they're really stuck in a place until they can build what they need to have. And that sets it up even more because we know at the time, this, especially in episode 1, the stakes for Data in that aspect. So that having that be a season cliffhanger, to have that when you're knowing the stakes makes it that much more intriguing. And you're like, God, I want to see what's going to happen next. And then you add in the time travel aspect of bringing them all back through time travel, and you have these aliens who are. It's definitely a creative version of time travel as far as what these aliens go. But again, aliens using the cover of a disease or a plague to be able to take these people and murder them for their own resources. But everybody just thinking, oh, well, they just died because of this. But yet there's still enough mystery there to be going like, something doesn't quite feel right here.
Right.
But the naivety, the people of that time being so naive to certain things and not even thinking about those kind of things, except for obviously Mark Twain, who's just like a million steps ahead of everybody in these episodes. But I think it was very well done. And I think, again, it's a balance of they kept it serious with the time travel aspect and what the aliens were doing, but they still allowed fun with some of the classic fun time travel tropes in this episode too.
Good call. Yeah. All right. Well, our friends, like I said, this article and these podcasts were inspired from a Screen Rant article, and I also found another article from Screen Rant. Rachel published this just this year in March of 2024. And this is all 10 Star Trek TNG time travel episodes ranked. And I wanted to go over these briefly to remind you. She starts off the article saying some of Star Trek's best television episodes and films incorporate time travel, including two of the most beloved films of the franchise, Star Trek The Voyage Home and Star Trek First Contact. Star Trek Next Generation seemed to have a particular fondness for the science fiction staple, which includes 10 episodes of plots that center on time travel, from trips to the past to alternate futures to time loops. Captain Jean-Luc Picard and his Enterprise D crew became well acquainted with time travel throughout TNG's run. The show incorporated time travel in several interesting ways, and here are all 10 episodes of the Star Trek Next Generation that center on time travel. And at number 10, guys, We'll Always Have Paris. That is season 1, episode 24, in which the Enterprise crew sees double. We also have Time Squared, season 2, in which Picard has a run-in with Picard. If I remember, the other Picard was behind time or like ahead of time, like by a few minutes. And that was interesting. We also have Firstborn. This is ranked at number 8 here, Star Trek TNG episode 7, in which an adult Alexander visits from the future. And then we have, this was a fun one here, guys. We have A Matter of Time. This was ranked at number 7. Season 5, episode 9, in which a supposed traveler from the future visits the Enterprise, played by Matt Fuhrer. Burlingham Rasmussen, as we find out, actually is from the past, and he hijacks a time traveler's pod, pretends to be him. Next, we have the episode that we're talking about now at number 6, Time's Arrow. Followed at number 5, we're getting up here, we have Timescape, season 6, episode 15, in which the Enterprise is frozen in time and members of the crew have to figure out what is going on, and some aliens are up to shenanigans here. And a very fun one here, we have at number 4, Cause and Effect. Talk about a time loop, guys. We get the destruction of the Enterprise in the opening scene, in which the Enterprise explodes over and over again, and a game of poker was never more important than this one. Next, we have at number 3 is Tapestry. This is where Picard gets a do-over, and he gets hosted by Q, and Q gets to show him what he could have been if he hadn't gotten in that fight with that Nos again. Very fun episode. At number 2, we have the final episode, All Good Things. And basically, a huge anomaly is about to destroy the universe as we know it, and we get some fun time travel and that, and a wonderful end poker scene. But at number 1, as they ranked, we have Yesterday's Enterprise. This one was in season 3, episode 15, which Enterprise encounters a blast from the past. This is where we get Tasha Yar from the alternate timeline. Rachel Garrett is the captain of the doomed Enterprise C. Very, very cool episode. A big fan favorite. So my question to my Union Federation crew, and we're going to start with you, our special guest ambassador, Sarah, of these episodes, if you remember them well enough or not, give me your favorite time travel episode from TNG and why.
Okay, out of those 10 listed, because I contend that there's one more.
Oh, please share.
Okay. I contend that Inner Light is a time travel episode for Picard, because there's an alien probe and it disables Captain Picard, and then he experiences like 20 years of life as this alien, while the rest of the crew and everyone experienced like 20 minutes. And so if that were included, that would be my favorite. Like, I absolutely adore that episode.
Is a popular one among fans. Good point.
Yeah. And when I went to I think it was San Diego Comic-Con 2018, there was like the Picard Museum that you could walk into, and they had the banner Captain Picard Day that the kids had made. It was like my reawakening of my Star Trek fandom. I saw the flute from
the Ruskin flute, yeah.
And I started to like tear up. I was like, oh my god, it's the flute. So yeah, that would be my favorite. But out of the other 10 listed, then I would pick Tapestry because I just love a
Tapestry.
Q episode, and anything that explores like Picard's whole past and the fact that he wouldn't have been a captain had he not experienced this life and death moment is just, it's so powerful.
Gotcha. Well done. Kyle, let's go to you. Of these 10 episodes, which one is your favorite and why?
This is tough because there's some very important episodes up in here. Cause and Effect is great, with one of the better time loop episodes ever done. Tapestry, incredibly important. And of course, All Good Things. I mean, come on, it's one of the best finales ever. But Kevin, deep down, I have a very soft spot in my heart for a particular Matt Fuhrer. And so
matter of time, huh?
Matter of time. I just love Matt Fuhrer. I love how he interacts with everybody in this episode. I know for some people it's not the best of episodes, but yeah, anytime you get a little Max Headroom going on my screen, I'm good.
I like that. That's cool. All right, Amy, let's go to you. Of these 10, which one is your favorite?
All right. Well, first of all, over on All Good Things, we do have a time travel series. And I just want to put it out there. We are recording our last episode of this season before we go on hiatus. We are recording about yesterday's Enterprise. So it will be a fabulous, please listen to All Good Things as we close out our episodes and go on hiatus. But this list, I do agree with most of it. Those 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, those low ones, yes, I absolutely agree. We'll always have Paris. I forget every single time. And then that stupid 6-minute time squared. Yeah, whatever. You see yourself 6 minutes ago. Absolutely love Cause and Effect. Best time loop ever. But for me, it has to be All Good Things. Like, that is the best episode. It's past, present, future. It's the way of thinking of going backwards in time while we're moving forwards. Like, the complexity of All Good Things, that to me is my number one. And I will agree with you, Sarah, that Inner Light should be on this list.
It should be. You guys made case for it. Yeah, well said, Sarah. Haley, what about you? What one is your favorite time travel episode of TNG?
I mean, technically it's Parallels, but I won't.
That's the Worf one, right? Yeah.
Yes. And I know it's not like time travel, but I mean, it kind of is because we don't know that it's necessarily the same day. Right. He's experiencing multiple, different versions. And then it's time travel for the fact that they all, over 200 Enterprises, all show up all at the same time and space. So technically, Parallels.
Good call. That's a good call.
My favorite, because also crazy bearded Riker, like, we're not going back. Like, he has to go back in time, but also back to his time. So
cranky. Yeah, we're not going back.
Yeah. As far as this list goes, my favorite is Timescape. I really enjoy these frozen in time, but not everybody's frozen in time, and who's not frozen in time, because there's Romulans aboard the Enterprise and trying to figure out what's going on and how can we get everybody unstuck, but also save everybody, as this picture is showing. She's gonna die. Crusher's gonna die. And so I really like this, when things are frozen, but only part of it is frozen and stuck. Yeah. I think those are the best. I, for the most part, agree with this list. Sorry, yesterday's Enterprise is gonna get knocked down several pegs, in my opinion.
Okay. Good call on Parallels. I like that. I struggled with picking my favorite, but I think I've come to a decision. I did want to give a shout out to Timescape. I love the concept of this, that they're coming back to this frozen battle and they're walking around, everyone's standing still. All of a sudden you see one of the Romulans move and it's really creepy. It's why is that running? You find out that it's an alien. But my favorite is the cause and effect. Seeing the Enterprise destroyed so many times, and you're wondering how the hell are they going to get out of this time loop. I love, of course, we get Mr. Fraser, Kelsey Grammer in this as well. But the thing that I really loved about this time loop was the clues that was building after each time it was being done, and then how many times do we have to listen to these suggestions that lead to this destruction, and then all of a sudden Data realizes something, and then the magic thing is 3 because of the 3 pips on Riker's collar, and it's just really, really well done and makes it extremely rewatchable. That's definitely one of my favorites, and I think that's great. So okay, guys, let's go ahead and get into the next segment I want to talk about is some of the special features or lack of special features, but some deleted scenes that I found on, and I'll show you these here, is season 1 and 2 on, or excuse me, seasons 5 and 6 on Blu-ray, which is the, at the end of 5, of course, is Time 01, and at the beginning of season 6 is Time 02. And I always try to see if I can find some fun special features, and I found some deleted scenes on the second episode. Time 0.2 that I didn't want to bring to the table here, which I found very interesting. And by the way, I had to get these screenshots myself by taking a picture from the TV, so that's why they're a little grainy. But what's really interesting is there's a great scene that pretty much all takes place in the same few minutes. And if you're looking at the YouTube video here, the first one in the upper left-hand corner, there's a scene where the Doctor's being kind of an asshole, basically, to Beverly. Beverly's having a wonderful moment where she's trying to help this sick person, and she grabs a stethoscope, and he's like, no, in so many words, he's saying, no, let me do it. I'm the doctor, type of thing. And then it pans over to the scene that is mentioned by Deanna and Geordi, but you actually get to see the conversation they have with this sick patient, and he describes basically that there's this couple that comes in either pretending to be a doctor or whatever it is, and you get to see him tell it himself about what happened. But later it's cut from the episode, and so what you see basically is Deanna referring to that conversation. And then you see outside of the hospital, that bottom picture is the back of Riker, and he just has a quick conversation with Picard, and you see these Davidian aliens literally walk right past them, and they don't really know who they are yet. So interesting moment there. Guys, let's get into some Star Trek trivia. All right. We'll go ahead and take some, we'll take turns here. I'm going to go first here because I found this interesting. And as the last episode, guys, we remember we had, in Unification, we had a crew member make an appearance in a reflection of an object. And in the Blu-ray, they removed it. Well, guess what? We had it happen again in this two-parter. We had a crew member hiding in the back that was caught, and I actually took a screenshot from the DVD and from the Blu-ray. And in the Blu-ray, they kept it in. They did not take out this mysterious actor here. For a brief moment, we see the production staff seen behind the main wall of engineering at the beginning of the show. This is the fourth time on TNG where a production staff member was accidentally filmed. The first was a camera operator in The Naked Now in 87. The second was two boom operators in Age of One. Third one that we just talked about was William Gawk in Unification 2. And we also have another one coming up in these two-parters, guys. We're going to have to look for it in Birthright Part 1. So we'll have to check that out there. Let me go ahead and read the next trivia there for us, please.
Well, Jerry Hardin had never played Mark Twain before, but he became so enamored with the character after this that he created a one-man touring show about him.
Wow.
That would have been cool to see.
Yes.
Haley, you got the notes in front of you? Do you want to read the next one?
Yeah, the next one I already said.
Oh, no, and I did not pull them up, so
that's bad. Okay. Kyle, you got it going there?
Go to Mark Alimo.
Yeah, Mark Alimo, later to play Goldacott in Star Trek Deep Space Nine, makes an appearance as one of the poker players that Data cleans out. It is his fourth and final Next Generation appearance.
I wish that scene where they exchange French between each other, because I don't understand French. I wish it would have been, like subtitled, because I don't know what they said. I thought that would have been kind of cool.
Yeah.
The San Francisco beggar identifies himself as a 49er. In 1848, gold was discovered in California, and by 1849, the gold rush was in full swing. In 1849 and 50, over 300,000 folks came out west to join the rush. Most of them ended up broke or unemployed. Amy, next one.
All righty. The severed data head used in this episode was seen again in Phantasms. My goodness. Data's severed head was later used as the severed head of a Borg drone in Unimatrix Zero.
Do you think Brent Spiner got to keep it later? Does he have it hanging somewhere? I want to know that.
I don't know.
He
That
would,
head got around
too.
though.
Sarah, would you like to have the data head hanging somewhere,
Absolutely. I'd put my little data figure next to
Yay,
it.
look at data.
So, Kevin, I wanted to ask you because we see Data's head. Well, I guess that's Lore's, but in essence, Data's head severed in Nemesis. So I'm wondering, was this trivia? Did it come from a book that stopped, or do we think that it was a whole?
This came
head?
from IMDb. It's possible that either it didn't mention it, but that's a good call. I forgot about the Nemesis thing.
Yeah.
It should have been in here unless I just missed it or something. But that's it. Yeah,
Okay.
that's a good call.
Well, we
All
have
right.
smart listeners out there, so you let us know too.
All right, Kyle, you want to get part 2 trivia there? This is interesting.
Yeah, Alexander Enberg, the reporter, the son of producer Jerry Taylor, later played Tarek in Lower Decks.
Oh.
I'm sorry, I just have Lower Decks on the brain here or something because I just think, wait, Lower Decks, but it's all good. And Tarek's twin brother Warwick in numerous episodes of Star Trek Voyager from 1995. And if
That's
you look
cool.
up on the screen here, the young reporter is Alexander Enberg, and you see him playing Ensign Torek in Lower Decks. And
Yes. Very good.
Cool.
I think we lost Kevin, so Anna, keep going.
Okay.
He's popping in. I would like to read this next piece of trivia, though, because
Kyle.
I will go fast. Samuel Clemens expresses an interest in Halley's Comet. This body was visible in the sky both on the day of Mark Twain's birth in 1835 and the day of his death in 1910. There was a legend that he expected his own death to come in that year for that reason. And Kevin, I was in a lead-lined room, so I survived.
Yeah, that's Haley's Comet and Mark Twain there. Boy, that's interesting. I'll hit the next one here.
It's Halley's Comet.
Halley's Comet?
Yes, it is not Haley. It is Halley's. Just putting that out.
I always said Haley's. I always heard Haley's.
A lot of people say Haley's.
Yeah, but you know what? Haley.
Don't argue with science officer and the Oracle. It goes. It will not end well.
Nope.
The next trivia is producer Ronald D. Moore regretted that Moore was not done with the 1890s period. It had to be dropped due to time and budget constraints. Originally, they were supposed to be in 1893 for several months. They would meet at a cafe run by Picard, with a running joke about how bad his food was.
Aw.
That's funny.
Amy, hit the next one for us.
All right. Towards the end, Captain Picard mentions that Samuel Clemens will write the books he was to have written after our encounter. Indeed, Clemens, aka Mark Twain, wrote 7 books after 1893. The last one, The Mysterious Stranger, was published posthumously in 1916.
What was The Mysterious Stranger about? Was it Guinan?
Oh.
Ooh.
Kyle, hit us with the next one.
Some reviewers have complained about Jerry Hardin's Sam Clemens voice. There are no known voice recordings of Clemens, aka Mark Twain, but there are recordings of William Gillette, a neighbor of Clemens, impersonating him, and they sound a bit like the voice here. Presumably Hardin, unlike the reviewers, did his homework.
That's interesting. All right. And last but not least, trivia here. Pamela Kosh, a.k.a. our lovely Mrs. Carmichael, would make an appearance in All Good Things 1994 as Jessel, a housekeeper for Data in the future, an equally cantankerous woman in another time travel adventure. I don't think she cared for the gray streak in his hair, if I remember
That's
correctly.
right.
Guys?
But she served a good cup of tea.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get into the next segment here. All right. I wanted to give you guys a chance to kind of talk about the guest cast. Very hard, of course. Samuel Clemens, because I think we had some fun characters in this. And Healy, I want to start with you.
Okay, sorry, I zoned out. Went brain cell.
Your thoughts on the guest cast that we had in these two?
Yeah, I think they did a good job of picking people to, Samuel Clemens, like that's just always rememberable. And then we have the Lower Decks episode where they're playing Samuel Clemens on the holodeck, so obviously like it's rememberable for a lot of people. So I enjoyed that, and I do believe the actors for the aliens were well played, because you'd want them to be able to make creepy faces
Yes.
without like a lot of effort, and just kind of give off this vibe of like, okay, they're sketch, but I don't know why they're sketch, without being overtly, I don't know.
Yeah, good call. Yeah. Sarah, what about you? What do you think of the guest stars in this?
All right, I have a bone to pick with Jack London.
Yes. Okay.
All right. And this is because, Data is giving Jack, now this is just story-wise, Data is giving Jack like all this gratuity and stuff, and then Jack goes and lets Sam Clemens into Data's room. Like, what the heck?
What's up with that?
That was like totally annoying to me. I'm like, wait a minute, he would never do that. But I guess Samuel Clemens at this time is kind of famous, right? So perhaps he kind of talked his way in. But I do have to say, I really liked the actor who played Jack London and how he portrayed him just full of gumption and drive, and just like, like he'd do anything to get ahead, the American dream, and he talks about going to Alaska, which of course Jack London's books, and there's several that are set in Alaska. It's really
played by
cool.
Michael Aaron. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah. So Michael Aaron, I think he did a great job. And I was just refreshed at a young person who has all this gumption and drive, which is not something you see a lot of anymore.
Kyle, your thoughts on the cast?
Jay Harden playing Samuel Clemens, aka Mark Twain. For me, if I could time travel and go back in the past, that would be somebody who I would want to go talk to, because, and you kind of brought it up, sir. There's no way Jack London lets Sam Clemens into Data's room. Yeah, he does, because he talks his way into that room and probably gets Jack London so confused by the end of it he doesn't even know what he's doing, because that's what Mark Twain, Samuel Clemens, did. Yeah, I mean the man was a wordsmith and was a silver-tongued devil in some ways too. And I'm with you, Michael Aaron as Jack London. I love the portrayal in this, and just the energy he brought to the character, and it fits so well within this time frame and what he was trying to accomplish. And I think they did a pretty good job of representing two of the more famous writers in American history.
Good point. Yeah. The only thing that was missing was getting them all to play in a card game. Amy, your thoughts on the guest stars?
These guest stars, as I'm listening to you talk about them, each one is so good. And I'm trying to think, like, is there another episode where like each actor embodied and like they are memorable parts, like the couple with the cane, the Davidians, like they were so prim and proper and trying to fit in, even though they're aliens. Like it was perfect. And Clemens, Mark Twain, right? And Guinan, of course. The old 49er beggar, like I will remember his haggard look and how he was coughing and, helping Data, and
played by Jack Murdoch. Yeah.
Yes. Each of them are just so good. Carmichael, like they're so good, and they're each good independently. Like you're saying, Jack London, like each of them is memorable. It's really bizarre. And I'm struggling to think of, is there another episode with these like secondary one-off characters that you remember like this. This is a
Yeah.
good cast.
Good call. Yeah, I shout out to Mary Stein, who played the alien nurse. And I love the moment where she's like dying, and it's very ominous. And Picard's like, "Look, let us help you. Let's find another way." And she says there is no other way, and he's explaining about how he's going to destroy their time travel device, and she says, "No, that's only going to amplify it." And I love how they threw that little like, "Uh-oh, we can't do that," and he was able to get Data with his old head to figure out what not to do. I thought that was really cool. Guys, let's go ahead and wrap this up. I want to get your final thoughts here. All right, let's get our final thoughts on Time's Arrow Part 1 and 2. Fun time travel episodes that we have here. A summer cliffhanger we had to wait for. So give me your final thoughts, and then also how would you rate it? And I'm just going to give you a heads up that Time's Arrow Part 1 rated at 8.4 on IMDb. Part 2 rated at 8.2. Let's start with Sarah, our wonderful guest ambassador from Skywalking through Neverland network here. Let me know what your final thoughts are on this and your ranking.
I would give it a solid 9.4 for both episodes. I really like that. The fact we get to experience, Picard and Guinan's relationship. It's just fun, and I'm here for the fun as well as the science. So, yeah, that's my final ranking.
All right, Kyle, what about you, sir?
Again, I'm going to go back to the fun factor of these two episodes, and let's be honest here. While we have great performances by a lot of the cast, Mark Twain steals this. And when you have somebody who plays Mark Twain and embeds himself in a science fiction show for the rest of time because the performance is so memorable to so many people, and the guy goes on to do his own one-man show afterwards.
Yeah, right.
That's so amazing. For me, just on the fun factor alone, I'll give this a high rating. I'm going to say for both parts an 8.7.
8.7. All right. That's a good score, too. All right. Okay, Haley, let's go for you. Your final thoughts, and what do you rank Time's Arrow 1 and 2?
Okay, final thoughts. I enjoyed the episode for the time period aspect. It's kind of like Fistfuls of Datas, because I like that because of the time aspect. It's just timepiece stuff. So I enjoyed that aspect of this episode, and I think for me it's gonna be a 7.1.
7.1. Okay. All right. Amy, what about you? Final thoughts, and what kind of ranking?
Yeah.
Still thinking.
Yeah, I hate saying not overglowing things about it, but it's just a fun, good episode. If I'm looking at the two-parters, I don't know why, but my gut instinct is to be like, skip it. If you listen to Trek Geek, see it or skip it. I'm never drawn to watch it. And maybe because these actors are so memorable, the story is so tied up in a little bow, I don't have to really think about it. And I remember it so well that it's I don't need to refresh my memory because I remember it. So maybe I should be giving it a higher rating, but I am not going to. I'm going to give it a 7.8.
All right. That's still good. All right. Just under what IMDb gave it. This two-part episode I remember fondly. I love it fondly. I love rewatching it. There's a lot of, as Kyle says, there's a lot of fun moments in this. And I just freaking love time travel with Star Trek. I just love it. I love it. I love it. We refer to it all the time. And, it's no, slingshotting a Klingon bird of prey around the sun. But, we got another cool time travel trope and how they did it. So IMDb gives this 8.4, 8.2. I'm going to go ahead and give it an 8.8. because of how much I love the time travel in this, and I thought it was very, very clever, really well done, and a lot of fun to revisit. All right, guys, this is the Union Federation, both on the Fandom Podcast Network and BQN. And of course, we are reviewing every 2-part episode of Star Trek Next Generation in this limited podcast. And to tease what's coming up next is episode 184 of Union Federation, and we are discussing Chain of Command Part 1 and 2. And we'll debate how many lights there are. So we're excited to get to that. But as I said, this is the Fandom Podcast Network. I want to start with our special guest here, Sarah. First of all, thank you so much for joining us. And please let our listeners and our watchers know how we can find you and what's happening over there at the Skywalking Through Neverland Podcast Network.
Oh, thanks. I'm so excited that you asked me to come. And, we actually saw each other in person for a long time and a while.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, right after San Diego Comic-Con. And so basically from those 2 weeks were the craziest weeks for us. We did San Diego Comic-Con. We did D23, the Disney Ultimate Fan Convention. And
I might have been Facebook stalking all of your posts, by the way, because I was getting all my news from you guys.
Well, yeah, we disseminated a lot. In fact, we have about, I think, like 20 videos up from both of those places. We did, Richard and I, my husband, we hosted trivia, Star Wars trivia at San Diego Comic-Con, and videos of that is up. And so I just recommend heading to skywalkingthroughneverland.com. You can find all of our things there, and on social media we are at Skywalking Pod, and we do a lot of like Instagram reels from our events and from the Disney parks, which we head to. We were just there yesterday checking out Halloween time, of all things.
Oh, that's right, it's creeping in. I love it.
Yes.
Love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Let's go ahead and go over to you, Amy. How can we get a hold of you guys? And you, of course, are the BQN Queen Master there. What's happening there, and how can we find you?
Well, you can, find me listening if you listen to All Good Things, co-host there. And as I mentioned, starting our YouTube, The View Screen, which is our Star Trek talk show airing on Sundays. That'll start September 8th at 9 a.m. Pacific. And I am in our Facebook groups, the Union Fed and BQN Collective. And I am on the Discord server as well. So Amy Nelson 522.
Awesome. All right. Bailey, how can we get a hold of you? How are you doing?
Oh, I think I'm up to 2 brain cells. So it's fine. Because there's 2 lights. That's all I got. You can find me on Instagram, on Blue Sky, and in Discord at Trekkie01D. I'm in our Facebook group. That's about it. That's all I got right now.
Awesome. All right, Kyle, how can we find you, sir?
Oh, so many places, but of course, always here on the Fandom Podcast Network, whether it's on our Facebook page. For any of our amazing groups, you can find me on Twitter at AKyleW. You can find me on Discord at AKyleW. And you can find me on Threads and Instagram at AKyleFandom. And more importantly, before I let Mr. Reitzel off the hook here, if you are a fan of this show, you know that sometimes we slip in references to another favorite sci-fi show around here as I talk to my sestras. And I would just like to inform my sestras that Mr. Reitzel is finally on the path to becoming a sestra.
Yes.
What?
Yes. Yes.
What the viewers and listeners are wondering is I've just started watching season 1 of Orphan Black. And I just saw a certain Berlinghoff Rasmussen make an appearance in an early episode. So I'm curious to see what becomes of him.
Oh my gosh. I want to rewatch with you. I might start.
Yeah.
Okay. Season
I've been bugging
For
Kyle like
years
I'm gonna do this.
Yeah.
Yay, I'm so excited.
Yeah,
when
I'm
is the
excited
movie or whatever coming out?
It's out. The new series has been running now. It's in fact, I think it's getting close to wrapped up.
Yeah.
Oh shoot.
Orphan Black. Yeah, it's definitely got me hooked. So excited to talk about that more on the Fandom Podcast Network. And speaking of, my name is Kevin. You can find me on Spartan_Phoenix on all of the social medias. Of course, that includes X, Instagram, Threads, Discord, and Letterboxd. Union Federation, by the way, please join our Union Federation Facebook group. We would love to have you guys there. Talking about Star Trek and the Orville. Union Federation is also on X and Instagram. And of course, our master feed for all of our audio podcasts is at fpnet.podbean.com. You can also email us at unionfederation@gmail.com. First of all, I want to thank again, Sarah. Thank you so much for coming. I love talking Trek with you. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you for feeding my Trek fandom. I got to break out my Star Trek dress for this, so I was very excited.
I love it. That is fantastic. Of course, I want to thank my crew. Kyle, thank you very much. Amy, Haley, appreciate you guys. Looking forward to next week. And until next week, live long and prosper. And without a doubt, this is the weirdest ship in the fleet. See you guys next week.